A player that I don't expect to have much more long-term health is Josh Jacobs. The Raiders ran him into the ground last year and threw him into the ground. They were passing, they were rushing with him. They were giving 30-plus touches almost every week. But this is a player that if we have skepticism about this offense, yes, the volume may stay, but the efficiency may not be there if teams are now expecting Josh Jacobs to be the one through whom the offense is run. Last year, there was rumblings even when the Raiders were playing in the Canton game that Zamir White was going to be a significant part and that Josh Jacobs is playing the second series in the preseason game. How dare he play that? And so there were narratives last year of concern of Josh Jacobs, but now he's franchise tag. Is he going to get 350 touches and hold up for that amount? Because in previous years, he had been playing 14, 15 games. So he was fortunate to stay healthy for almost all of last year, but running backs play the running back position. He's on a 1-year deal. There's no incentive for the team to not give him touches and to keep him healthy for the whole season. I think there are concerns for Josh Jacobs as well outside of the general dysfunction that the Raiders have.
Yeah, there may be a point where he has a contract injury at some point this season, right? If the Raiders season's tanking and what's going on, he may have a soft tissue injury suddenly pop up on the injury report and miss a couple games. Like you mentioned, DeAndre Hopkins, maybe the last 2 games, was not quite the injury-related type situation that we were led to believe. Now, Jacobs, he may also end up running the ball even more this season than ever before. This contract situation, listen, only Derrick Henry had more carries last season than Josh Jacobs, 340. Jacobs' 1,653 rushing yards was considerably higher than his previous outputs there, 872, 1,065, 1,150. So I suppose somewhere in the middle lies what his production could look like in 2023. And I'm thinking somewhere in that 1,200 to 1,300 range, considering I think he's still going to get the volume because the Raiders quarterbacks, even if it's Jimmy Garoppolo can't throw more than a 15, 20-yard out, right? We know he's not going to go deep with the ball. They're going to need to establish the run in this offense to get anything going. But you look at it, that number, that 12 to 1,300 yards, even 1,200 yards, that would still rank in the top 5 compared to last season's rushing leaders. The bottom line is volume is king here for Jacobs, and that's not going anywhere unless he's traded at some point too, right? That is a possibility that we can't necessarily take off the table here. But here are some stats that I thought were interesting. 93 rushing first downs last season. The next closest back to that was Nick Chubb at 69. 64 running back targets in the passing game, 11th most in the league, along with 53 receptions for 400 yards. Why aren't we talking about Josh Jacobs as a 2,000-yard running back? No one's talking about it. No one's even giving him credit for his fantasy production, yet we're dismissing him once again like we do every season. And I don't even think I'd have to double check where the consensus is on his running back ranking. But again, he's feeling like a value right now because people have him. I guess they finally are smartening up a little bit. I think he's still running back 6 or 7 as far as the consensus is concerned. But most people still see him as that RB14, RB15 in the same conversation as Miles Sanders, James Conner, David Montgomery, the kind of guys that we always tend to lump in together. Now, do I think he repeats what he did last season? No, but you know what? If you even go back to 2021, he still caught 54 passes. So what he saw with his 64 targets is something that he could definitely be involved in again. And we talked about PPR formats, getting those passing opportunities, getting those targets. Again, with those 54 passes in 2021, he turned that into 348 yards. And that was done in just 15 games. So he was actually a better pass catcher in 2021, projected outwards of an extra 2 games than what he was last season. Now, from 2020 to 2022, only Jonathan Taylor has created more yards than Josh Jacobs, 1,125. After finishing his RB3 last season, I have him as the RB5. So there's a dip, but not a whole lot of a dip here. And I think if you're passing up on Josh Jacobs, I think you're going to be the dip in your fantasy leagues.
Ooh, there we go. So you're probably drafting a lot of Josh Jacobs. I think he's going, round 3 right now? I don't think he's crept into round 2 yet, but that may be that'll be a player that I think, if you're planning to go wide receiver, Josh Jacobs might be a very interesting pick in the 3rd round if you're passing up quarterbacks in that spot.